dusty town of Silver Creek was buzzing with cruel laughter that summer afternoon as wagons rolled in for the annual Frontier Fair, a day when ranchers, traders, and families gathered in their Sunday best. But the laughter wasn't from joy, it was from mockery, aimed at a young woman standing on the auction platform, her face pale under the weight of humiliation. She was dressed in a simple wedding gown, the fabric straining across her body, her figure fuller than most in the crowd dared to accept. They called her names, their voices sharp like knives. "Who'd marry that whale?" someone shouted, while others doubled over, sneering. The woman's hands shook as she clutched her bouquet, her lips trembling, though she kept her chin lifted with quiet dignity. She was not weak, yet their cruelty pressed on her like a crushing storm. Among the crowd stood Luke Carter, a widowed cowboy with a hardened face carved by years of loneliness and work. Beside him, holding his calloused hand, was his daughter, a little girl no older than 8, with golden hair and innocent eyes untouched by the poison of judgment. As the jeers grew louder, Luke shifted uncomfortably, torn between walking away and stepping forward, when suddenly his daughter tugged his sleeve and pointed toward the trembling bride. "She is pretty, Daddy," she whispered, her voice clear and pure as sunlight breaking through storm clouds. In that moment, the cowboy's breath caught. His daughter saw beauty where others saw shame, worth where others saw weakness, and something in her words pierced his weary heart. While the crowd laughed, Luke's gaze softened, realizing the child was right. The woman before him, despite the cruel stage, stood with a strength no mockery could shatter, and to him, that was real beauty. The woman's name was Clara, though few in Silver Creek cared enough to remember it, preferring to reduce her to cruel jokes and whispers. But when Luke stepped forward, silence rippled through the crowd. All eyes turned as the rancher, tall and broad-shouldered, approached the platform with his daughter at his side. Clara flinched, expecting another insult, but instead Luke's voice rang out, steady and unshaken. "I'll take her." Gasps filled the air, followed by bursts of laughter louder than before. "Carter's lost his mind," someone snorted. Another barked, "Guess he couldn't get better." The mockery stabbed at Clara, but Luke ignored them, holding out his hand as though she were a queen and not a spectacle. "Come down, miss," he said softly. Clara's eyes widened, searching for cruelty in his gaze, but found none. Slowly, hesitantly, she placed her trembling hand in his. When her feet touched the ground, Luke's daughter slipped her tiny hand into Clara's and smiled up at her. "I told Daddy you're pretty," the girl said with innocent certainty, and Clara's breath hitched, tears brimming in her eyes. It had been years since anyone had spoken words of kindness to her, let alone called her pretty without mockery. As Luke led her away, the townsfolk's laughter followed, cruel as ever, but he didn't falter. He guided Clara to his wagon, shielding her from the storm of voices with the silent promise in his stance. For the first time in a long time, Clara felt like someone had seen her, not her size, not her shame, but her humanity. And that night, when they reached his ranch, she sat by the hearth in awe as Luke's daughter, with all the warmth of a child's heart, wrapped her small arms around Clara and whispered again, "You are pretty, and I like you." The words, simple yet powerful, broke something inside Clara. Tears flowed freely, and for once they weren't tears of pain but of fragile hope. Life on the ranch was far different from the cruelty of town. Clara, though shy and uncertain, began helping with the chores, her strong hands proving useful in ways that surprised even herself. She could knead dough that rose better than anyone's, mend clothes with careful stitches, and soothe the ranch's restless calves with a patience Luke hadn't seen in years. Still, Clara's heart was heavy. Each time she passed the mirror, the voices of Silver Creek echoed, too big, too ugly, unworthy, and she turned away, ashamed. But Luke's daughter, named Annie, would run up to her with flowers tangled in her hair, declaring, "Clara, you're the best," or "Clara, you make everything nicer." Slowly, those words began to weave threads of healing. Luke noticed it too. He saw how Clara's laughter, once buried, began to slip out in small, uncertain bursts, lighting up the dim kitchen. He saw how Annie clung to Clara's skirts, demanding stories and songs, as though she'd found the mother she'd long missed since her own had passed. And Luke, himself, though silent, found his heart softening in ways he hadn't expected. One night, as the fire crackled low, Clara sat with Annie in her lap, humming softly, the child fast asleep against her chest. Luke paused at the doorway, the sight striking him like a revelation. Clara, mocked and rejected by the world, fit perfectly into the hollow places of his home. She wasn't just filling a role, she was becoming part of them. And though he didn't say it aloud, Luke knew in that moment the cruel laughter of Silver Creek no longer mattered. But the world wasn't quick to forget its cruelty. Weeks later, when Luke brought Clara to the town market, whispers and stares returned like vultures circling carrion. Women sneered at her dress, men chuckled into their mugs, and Clara's hands trembled as she tried to carry supplies. Luke's jaw tightened, but before he could speak, Annie, fearless as always, stood on tiptoe and shouted to the crowd, "Stop laughing! My Clara is pretty and she's kind. You're just mean." Silence blanketed the street. Clara froze, stunned by the child's fierce defense, her cheeks blazing with both embarrassment and pride. Luke pulled his daughter close, his gaze sweeping across the townsfolk with a warning that dared anyone to speak. For the first time, Clara didn't shrink from their eyes. She held her head high, Annie's little hand gripping hers with unshakable faith. That night, back at the ranch, Clara finally spoke the words she'd held inside for so long. "I'm not used to kindness, Luke. I thought maybe I was cursed to be a joke forever." Her voice broke. But Luke stepped closer, his tone gentle but firm. "You ain't a joke. You're strong, and you're real. That's worth more than all their words." She looked at him, truly looked, and for the first time, she saw not pity in his eyes but respect and something deeper she didn't dare name. Seasons changed, and with time, the wounds Clara carried began to heal. The laughter of Silver Creek no longer haunted her as fiercely, replaced by the laughter of Annie as they baked pies together, or the sound of Luke's low voice teaching her how to ride across the prairie. What had begun as a cruel spectacle of mockery had transformed into something sacred, a family stitched together, not by perfection but by love. On a quiet evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in fire, Luke found Clara on the porch, her hands folded in her lap, her dress fluttering in the breeze. Annie sat at her feet, braiding flowers into her gown. "Mama, you're so pretty," Annie said with a sleepy smile, and Clara's tears fell freely, not of sorrow but of joy. Luke sat beside them, his hand brushing Clara's, and for once she didn't pull away. Instead, she whispered, "I never thought I could be loved." Luke squeezed her hand gently, his voice steady as ever. "You were always worth loving. Just took someone with eyes wide open to see it." Under the vast western sky, Clara smiled through her tears, finally believing the words. No matter how the world laughed, she had found her place, her home, and her worth. And in the eyes of a little girl and her father, she was not only pretty, she was everything. And that, friends, was the story of a woman mocked by the world, but lifted by kindness, love, and a child's unshakable heart. If this touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful Wild West stories filled with courage, redemption, and love.